All right. Hi, and thanks for joining me today. If you didn't know who I am, my name is Victor Robledo. I am part of Nomads with a Purpose. I'm the dad. And today, what I'm going to share with you are secrets from our full time RV living. What we've learned that can help you live an amazing life. Now, before we jump into this, I hope that I can share at least one little thing that can kind of have you step in the right direction. And when we're talking about what we're full time RVing, a lot of this has to do with our capacity to make decisions and take that leap. And that can be extremely challenging for everyone, whatever walk of life. And so I hope to shed, and I don't want to get overly into really dealing with the brain and understanding the self, but naturally we'll do that because I've been a strength and conditioning coach and a health and wellness coach, and we deal with helping people overcome some of these things. But without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the first thing with this is, why am I worth listening to? If you're here and you made it to this webinar, and I'm providing it. Look, we've been doing this for 10 years. We have full-time traveled for 10 years. When our kids first started, they were ranging from 3 to early teens, and now we have 3 over 20 and two teenagers. We have literally lived on the road and raised our family on the road. That comes with a lot of clout. Now, every day I interact with my children. I'm time rich and I play sports with my kids every day and do activities. And I did not grow up this way. I grew up camping one time, and I played what I call normal activities, sports that you do in school like soccer and football. I had zero adventure sports. Now I rock climb, surf, mountain bike, hike, and do lots of different things. I'm healthy and active. I walk the walk. I've been doing this for a long time, and I full-time RV. So we not only do we full-time travel, we full-time RV travel. So our life has been this, what I'm about to help you with. And I went from a fearful provider to an excited adventurer. I was really a nervous wreck when I was doing this. And it was extremely scary for me for many things, because in my mind, I thought I was going to be this person that was going to be judged because I was living outside the box. Some part of me was really like, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to live this way. And some part of me is like, I don't want, what do people think? Now, look, I have 30 years of experience in helping people get strong and grounded and enjoying their life. As a health and wellness coach for the past 30 years, 20 of those years were within a brick and mortar. I know exactly the challenges that you're facing and what health and how can it impact your ability to take flight and make these choices. Now, this first slide it's not your fault. What elements contribute to you not engaging in your own life and engaging and maybe taking a step, whether it's traveling more or full-timing or full-time RV travel? Look, the first thing is money problems. They can contribute. There's no way around this. Understanding your bottom line, understanding what challenges you may have. The system in society deems as normal is a big problem when we're dealing with people that are trying to engage in either taking a year off abroad or taking 3 months, because you will be judged by the people around you. Society has, like, this is what you do. You go to school, then you go to high school, then you go to college and get a job and work until you are 65, and then you can retire with your pension and start enjoying your life. That is kind of what you're facing when you start to ask these questions. Your friends and family, what are they saying? How were you raised? Some of the challenges we face is the circles you are around. For us, we had some of those challenges, but we started to distance ourselves initially when we started to not want to put our kids in school. So little by little, we started to close our circle around. And in general, in our business, we didn't really, the socialization outside of business was limited because I was so burnt out on the weekends. I didn't really want to. People were kind and they wanted to see us outside of our business, but personally, I was just fried and I just wanted to spend quiet time with my family. But you may be different. You may be spending time with people and they're saying certain things. Test the waters. Stress, work, amygdala hijack relationships, and your programming. Now, like I said, we're talking about brain chemistry. We're talking about um, understanding the mind. I was going to get into a little bit. Like, really, the amygdala hijack is the simplest thing. We have been trained to be on this sort of hamster wheel of always worrying. And in 2019, you can tell it really wired us to always be on the lookout. That the amygdala is this center of the brain that's on lookout for danger. And everything in our world and our society is constantly keeping us in that. I actually received a message today about a person that looks into full-time RV travel, and her worries were things like, what about mountain lions? What about sharks? What about, people? Like, she was extremely worried about every scenario that she might get to an extreme. And while some of that is valid, let's actually pull back and go, what are the odds that those things actually happen? Slim to none. And so when we're wired this way to always worry, it can actually handcuff us. And so the amygdala hijack is one of those things that I always work on in my coaching, helping people get out of. Your relationships, they can add to, if you have a person who doesn't want to take flight. For me, I would have been that person had I not been in the place where I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to be the no person anymore. I'm just going to say yes, even though I really want to say no. And so I challenge myself a little bit. But maybe someone in your life is like the no person and like, no, that's not safe, that's not secure. And we'll get back to that a little bit later. Maybe you have an addiction to dopamine that gets in the way. Like, you're just attracted to simple fixes like great food, maybe TV, maybe things that are like really just upping. Even social media is a dopamine addiction, and that can really placate us to really going like, what is bigger and what do you want more? All right, so this number is shocking, and I think I want to share it with you because 57.8 million people, this is the number of Americans suffering from anxiety and depression in the US. Now, these are people that are reporting this, right? This is a massive number and a massive problem. And why I'm sharing it with you is because a lot of people with anxiety and depression, for me, anxiety, as I'm working as a coach, it's like you're either worried about the past. Yeah, you might have a trauma that's replaying, but you're also potentially worried about the future. And you're depressed potentially because you're not happy where things are in life. And so those two things can contribute to the state that you're currently in. And so you're not alone. I share this number not to go like shame, but it's like, look, when I have had anxiety, it was a little bit of a problem for me going like, God, what's wrong with me? There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. What is wrong is that if you don't listen to the signals that the body is telling you. Okay, why travel or adventure? My own path has really contributed to helping others try something new. And I can 100% tell you that I was that sure guy, even though I knew that I was going to face challenges. So these are the things that are sort of important that I really connect for people in a coaching call or as clients to help them to start to do things more, right? Experience more, like get more joie de vivre back, that zest for life. First, time. Becoming time rich is one of the key ingredients to giving you the space to get out of your own head. To me, the first indication of this when we first started traveling to Hawaii. Now, this is before full timing. We used to just go a week to Hawaii. And then I started going like, it takes me 4 or 5 days to even unwind before I could really relax with my family there and have some thoughts. And so we started staying 2 weeks. And that was kind of a trickle like, gosh, what state am I in? And is this state that I want to be in? Now, I didn't know I went through a massive adrenal fatigue when I was in my mid-30s with our business that really kind of caused a change in both Robyn and my life. And it caused her to grow and question a lot of things, and then me heal and try to grow and catch up with her. So healing is a big part of this. And most of us are in dis-ease You may not have a disease, but your body is in dis-ease. It's not a normal situation to be in, to have high levels of anxiety and depression. And so getting some travel and adventure gives you the time, and it also allows your body to heal and downregulate, get into that parasympathetic state, not that fight or flight state that we are in life. If you ever want to look at the fight or flight state, the phone is the biggest thing. Like, look at someone who is sitting at a dinner table. How often are they touching their phones? That's from a place of like high levels or low levels of anxiety. The connections with the loved ones, really, guys, this, I can't overstate this enough. Your kids will only be a certain age. If you're doing this with kids, or maybe you're not, or maybe you're doing it with a loved one and the clock is ticking, spending time with them. If you're not happy with the person you are in life, you can't get it back. Getting out of the matrix. That's the next one. The city and how we're supposed to live is likely not really how we really supposed to live as humans. And so getting out of that. Sun, movement, and exercise. One of the biggest things with just traveling is just the total amount of time. I tell people, even now, I'm sitting here in our RV, I am outside getting first light every single morning. I am outside 5-6 hours a day, minimum, and sometimes even more. And that alone is giving me exposure to the elements, exposure to sun, gives me exercise, and that alone will bring your health up. And the last one I have on this list is flow state. The happiest people spend the most time in flow state. That connection where there's timelessness. They have a sport or a hobby. Now that could be bird watching, or it could be hitting a black diamond when you're skiing. It does not matter. But if we get in that connected with flow state, all the markers, I've seen it with clients who have been having heart issues, elevated liver enzymes, blood pressure, cholesterol issues, diabetes. All of a sudden, I start dialing in these connections, get them travel and adventure as that missing link, and they start getting healthier. All right. So I'm a massive fan of Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Now, I love this quote because a lot of times what's happening below the surface in our mind, no one really has awareness of it. We want to be able to develop metacognition, that ability to float outside your body and go, am I being the person that I want to be? Or am I being aware of my unconscious thoughts? And the vast majority of our thoughts, we have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of it happens on the unconscious level, right? And so we need to be able to pull that out. Why is that important? For health and wellness and for you to enjoy your life, we must become aware of that. All right, so what are you saying to yourself? What are some limiting beliefs? What are the beliefs that are holding you back? Now, these were some of my big ones, and end up being some of the big ones that my clients are using. And it's important to bring this out so that you can really go into stepping into yourself and healing. For me, when we first went back from, we were still full-timing, and I was concerned about funds. We had started to full-time, but we'd run out of money. And we've been doing this 10 years, and I was in the process of building a digital platform, which I'm happy to say is thriving now. But when I was first doing it, I would work odds and ends as I was trying to grow a business in person. I'm realizing, like, I keep making these deals with myself. Robyn would say, okay, so when we have this much saved, then will you go play with me? Then will you go travel with me? So I'd say, when I make this much, then I'll go travel. And guess what? Goalposts. I would just move the goalposts back. I would get to that point and be like, no, wait. Now I need this. The second one on this list is should. Should is a bad word in our family. I should do this. We should do that. No, that's BS. You really can squash that and start asking yourself, like, wait, if it's a should, it probably is a no. Think about that. I should do this. I shouldn't. For me, one of the challenges was I shouldn't go full-time travel because what about my extended family? For the 4 times that I potentially saw them, I should not go live this life where I get to see things and experience things with my family. No, absolutely not. The third one here is safety and security. We've had quite a few people approach us, friends and clients, that always ask us about full-time travel. And I have this story. It says Stair story. I have a very good friend and client. who we met, and she was having some significant issues with the concept of full timing. She felt a lot of shame around it, and she also had a lot of worries. And she used to say, "Well, like I'm just worried that I'm going to get older." And she was, by the way, she was 30s when she was talking about this. And I'm not going to be. Don't you guys worry about going down the stairs and falling? And it kind of blew me back because I was like thinking, you're worried about something that's potentially going to happen 30, 40 years from now when you're just trying to enjoy full timing now. And the concept of safety and security, I share that story because it's somewhat silly at that point because there's so many ways to deal with that if that was actually a concern. And there are plenty of people that full-time travel that are in their mid 60s, 70s, 80s, and that might be a viable concern. Of course, what this is a reflection on is what is safety and security. What would make you feel safe? Because in the end, that has to rely within you, right? And that spans beyond just stairs, right? If you're looking to go full time, but you're afraid of letting go of a job, well, is that job actually safe? Because the world could shut down tomorrow, like it did in 2019, and poof, it's gone. So think about that. The resilience that you have within us and your problem solving capability, that's within you. And for me, one of the things that I struggled with is I says right there, I only did things I was good at for a long time. I wanted to stay in my lane. I was so ingrained in who I was, and the challenges that I had faced were like, man, I'm so good at my job. I'm so good at training. I'm so good at working with kids. I'm so good at my lifting. I'm so good at the sports that I play. Why would I want to get outside my box and be uncomfortable? And that goes on to a bigger question, right? Why is discomfort a bad thing? That's left for another webinar. The other thing that I had is like, I need routine. I'm a routine person. Well, routines are incredibly valuable, but as I've started to pull apart my routines, I would encourage you, if you are that person or someone else, like what could be connecting you to that routine? Personally, I have a lot of big T trauma and little T trauma in my past. And routines were a simple way of not tapping into a hormone response, a state of mind that would rattle me and remind me. I had to learn to disconnect from that, right? So when I traveled, I always talk about walking the streets of Barcelona and feeling really uneasy, even though it's incredibly safe. But something in me was like, I can't relax. I can't relax. I had to learn. I went through all that to find out, like, oh, I know why that was it. I had to start learning for myself, like new places, new things wired me to be worried instead of actually taking in other physical cues that are going around me. Like, no, this is safer in the middle of the day. So this brings us to the last point on here. Fear. What is fear? What is creating those challenges? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? All right. We really all do deserve an amazing life. Decide which values you want to live by. And these are questions that you can ask yourself. And you can write these down as we're going along. If I could guarantee your success right now, what would you do today? And if that's full timing or traveling, full-time travel, full-time RVing, trying to live digitally and do all these things being outside, then you should probably go do it. Another one that we use a lot is if IMWO. If money was no object, what would you do today? I ask this of all my clients usually day one. So you're getting some deep stuff. Now, why this is important is because if money was no object, like I would, Victor, I would sell everything and move into this and travel, and maybe I play music and learn and travel for this reason, then you should probably consider that and figure out what all your shoulds and coulds and all the negative reasons why you wouldn't, and actually assess if that's truth. Your life, this is a big one, only has to make sense for you. As I'm sitting here in St. George with my family, I have 3 RVs lined up, and I would think to myself, people would think, how is this, like, this really makes sense to you? Yeah. And right now, after I finish recording this, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu when I come here. I have a great group of guys that I love to train with. And that makes sense to me. It thrives. It gets me excited to wake up and live my life. Now, I've had the fortunate and unfortunate experience of seeing clients really go from, sometimes I've worked with some clients for 20, 30 years and started with them in 60s, 70s, and sometimes even older. And getting close to the end of their life, I've had deep conversations with them. And what do people regret? It's never working more. It's never staying safe. It is always about the relationships that they didn't build and the travel or the things that they didn't see. And so I would encourage you based on that. Don't be that statistic. Learn to step into that. I have had those challenges. I really have. Honestly, without Robyn and my family, I wouldn't have stepped forward to really like sort of break the nose as an old plastic surgeon that I used to have as a client used to say, in order to do a nose job, we have to go in and break the nose before we fix it. You got to go in sometimes and challenge yourself and figure out what's important to me and how much do I have grit to challenge this. And sometimes, and I have another story for you, pint versus the gallon. When we first started full timing, I spoke to someone that had been full timing for some time, and he basically ran adventure camps for underprivileged, overprivileged kids, took them out into the wild, and like taught them grit. And he said, "Look, Victor, it's very simple. Because you're holding on to the pint over here, you can't grab onto the gallon." And that pint for me was working in person in a place. And I had to learn to slowly let go of that, and so I can grab that gallon and grab the zest for life. All right. So I included this quote because I love it. Because for me, anger was a big thing. It was a big clue. Where there's anger, there's always pain underneath. And we're not going too much into this at this point, but I just want you to understand, if you're having frustrations and angers in your life, there's a unmet need, and that unmet need needs to be felt into, and someone shouldn't be providing it for you. You really need to step into that and verbalize that and figure out what that is. All right, travel basics. Let's get into some stuff. Deciding what kind of travel you are. What excites you? For us, adventure, being active, being in the mountains was sort of a key ingredient that we discovered early on. Figure out what's important to you. What do you see yourself traveling in? RVs, hotels, tents? You can do it any number of different ways. If you're going to do a short-term travel, you can easily go from one hotel to another, depending on what your funds are. Now, what is your travel fund? Do you have 5-star taste and a 1-star pocketbook? I think I have a lot of people who have 5-star taste and only will travel with that. And I go, well, that's fine, but your pocketbook's not going to reflect that. You're only going to travel. So if travel is a high value, and you're telling me you only want to travel if you're traveling to 5-star hotels and luxury accommodations, then you're going to be traveling once every 10 years. So technically, travel is not a priority because you can do it in a number of different ways. Plenty of people always tell me, I just need a cabin in the woods to be happy. I'm like, that's great. You should probably go do that because it doesn't actually cost you that much to do those things. And you're living in a life over here in a city with a mortgage and car payments, and you're holding yourself like, why? You don't even need that much money if that's actually what's all important. Be really brutally honest with yourself. Another question that's really important is, do you have a hobby or a passion that can help you build a framework for travel? For us, the first trip to Europe, it was about climbing, which we just started, and surfing. And so having those experiences kind of decided like, okay, then we're going to come here and then we're going to climb here and travel. If you have those things, it can really help to build out a schedule. Are you looking into full-time travel? Or is it something you really want to do? And if that's the question, on to the next slide. RV full-timing. These are the most common questions I get, and I'll answer them real quick for you. How will you make a living? How do you make a living? Well, the best day to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best day is today. And why I mention that is because if you're looking to make a living digitally, you can make a living in our world now. And regardless of the age, whether you're starting a YouTube channel or not. Yes, we have multiple monetized YouTube channels. Is that all you can pull from? Not necessarily. Could you work? I know plenty of people that go in, work at like Home Depot or Lowe's, save their money, get in their van, go travel, live 6 months abroad. Those places are always looking for employment. So you can do it that way. Or you can do it, start building the foundations for a digital platform. What is your ideal version of RV living? Do you like RV resorts, state campgrounds, or BLM where you could camp for free for 14 days? Personally, we're still tend to shift into state campgrounds when we're on the move. Because of the size of our rigs now, we tend to be in some RV resorts, but in the summer we'll do BLM as well. If you're just starting in this and you're very new to it, RV resorts are a great way because if you forget something, you have full hookups. It's generally easy, but you can save a ton of money and and camp on free dispersed campgrounds across the country. Decide which version it is and which one fits in your pocketbook. Within your pocketbook, Wi-Fi. So we don't have Starlink. I use 2 Wi-Fi hotspots, and that's been great as it stands. But probably by next summer, when we are wanting to get more off grid, I'll be using Starlink. So we use an AT&T hotspot as well as a Verizon, and we use T-Mobile for our cell service. So those 3 things have been very consistent. Very few places actually don't have that, especially state campgrounds. But we have gone to, gosh, we were up in the Cascades, and I had to drive up to stop at ski resorts to get signals for that. So take that into account. Friends is a common question. What about your kids and their friends? Well, first off and foremost, their family. We have a family of 5 kids. So they're each their own really great friend. And every now and then we cross paths with other full-timers. And particularly the two youngest have gotten to really get to know a few people that they would consider friends and want to meet up with. And we do that for them. But in the end, you're making a decision if you're going into full-time RV travel, what's important to you. And in the end, friendships are great, but if they're meant to last, there's ways to connect with friends, whether it's through Zoom or FaceTime or coming in and around through travel. And oftentimes friends are like, hey, I want to go meet them to travel. You will inspire them to get out of their own matrix. Privacy. This is a big one, right? They always ask us like, hey, what do you guys do for privacy? And without getting too specific, there are more than enough ways to get around that. Whether it's like, sending the kids out to play. I have 3 older siblings, they can go play. Or, heck, I have three older siblings, they can babysit. My wife and I can rent a hotel, spend some time together, go out on dates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's never actually been a problem. It does have to be more thought out, but I have to tell you, after working with tons of people in relationships, most people don't think many of the things out. They're not thinking like, when I need to spend some quality time with my spouse. So allotting for that is no different than in everyday life, just adds a few different things. Okay. Moving on to homeschooling, we get a lot of questions. The first thing is, of course, yes, you can. Robyn and I both have our degrees, and we also have worked with children for a long time, right? 30 years, 20 years with a brick and mortar. And so while we have some advantage to dealing with children, we also created a relationship with them where they would see us in a light that we can teach. If you decide to take some time and travel, even a few months, you have the ability to homeschool, road school, or unschool. And I can tell you, we've done all 3 of these. We had homeschooled our kids before we traveled. And it was very regimented because that worked for Robyn very, very well because she still need to get people, places, get to work, and activities. And then when we traveled, we started letting the road really dictate what was learning. So if we're going to Mount Rushmore, naturally my kids wanted to learn as much as they could. Voila, you have Mount Rushmore, and also geography, and also whatever it is they were into scientifically, really just studying nature provided an opportunity. And then really to the point where we unschool the last 2, it's all driven on what they are excited about. And then I really encourage them to geek out and just nerd out about as much as they can, whether that's mountain biking or violin or sewing clothes, which is kind of one of the biggest things that we're seeing with the 2 youngest, Jiraiya and Tati, right now. And they're bright and intelligent and are driven. They're both in the process of like really putting together their own courses to help other teens just feel happy. One of the key ingredients to making sure this is successful is understanding your kid's personality. Just because it makes sense to you doesn't mean it will make sense to your kids. And I put Island Tumble there in parentheses because when I had Island Tumble, when you learn to coach kids on a skill, let's take, for example, a backflip or a back handspring, it doesn't always resonate, doesn't always click. And so as coaches, We need to learn to say the same things in subtly different ways until something clicks. And in school is no different. Figuring out what works for your kid, as opposed to like, this is what the curriculum says. No, it's not always going to work. While it's a great, there are some kids you could just hand a book, please go through this worksheet. For some kids, they're going to have to be more project based. For some kids, they're going to just have to be more like hands on fixing stuff. And then that drives like reading, writing, math. So figure out what their personality is. Now, one of the big things with homeschooling is that we want to create just voracious readers. And it's tough with all the electronics. So at first, if you really need to get electronics to create a voracious reader, do it. I promise you. Right now I have my three oldest are 25, 23, and 20. And they are voracious. They were voracious readers then and now. And it really propelled themselves to understanding. Actually, they're much better writers than I could ever hope to be. Just because the amount they read, it naturally worked its way in and they absorbed it. This is good writing. The other thing that's super important is like school as the way it looks now is completely antiquated, right? There used to be that we needed a source from a person to teach our kids history, math, whatever it is. Like that's as simple as a Google search. And so what we need to understand is that school, the way we had it, depending on your age, really isn't valid. What are they doing? They're essentially babysitting and curating something. But all we need is actually excitement around anything, and it's always available to learn. All right, personal space, living in close quarters with your tribe. Now, this is kind of an important slide because it allows you to understand some of the challenges that we faced, right? One of the challenges of parenting is the way people communicate. It's real easy to get into a point where people get kind of like, he pushed me, he put in fighting is the second one in there, and the friction that you'll face. Well, some part of that has to be dealt with how you ask your children to communicate with each other, the tone that they use, the words that they use. Establishing that with your spouse. So in the end, like really you need to be who you want your kids to be. It says on my shirt when we first started on our digital platform, our website, that we started with that was really acting like you want your kids to act. The outdoors creates the space you need. It will always do that. Now, if you're traveling in the winter like we do to ski, that creates some challenges, but still, in general, if someone needs space, nature's always there. So that's always an opportunity. Don't let that bother you. How you really solve conflicts and how you really have conflict resolution is super important and really needs to be handled per family a little bit differently. Conflict is actually not bad. What is bad in my experience is taking a problem and shoving it under a rug, like when someone gets upset and goes to their room. That doesn't solve a problem. So you'll have to handle more of these issues as they arise. Yes, this will be challenged, but I can 100% tell you it's worth it. Have clear expectations of your kids and how you want them to handle an expectation. So for me, I established that from a young age. These are my expectations. You will not fight with your brother and sister. This is how I expect you to handle your challenges, your emotions. You're going to share. You're going to talk. This is how we handle it. We've always traveled with our kids in mind, and this can be the biggest and most important thing that you do when you travel. If you are taking them into account and they are going to places that they have picked, their energy and vibration is always going to be, yes, let's go. If it's always about you and what you've picked and never really involved them, they are going to have some issues. Now, they're going to be like, oh, I just want to be with my friends. Well, that is not an option, but we can talk about that later and cross paths. But we are in this. We're committed to this. We are going to choose. What do you want to do? Right? And that always helps, having that clear communication. So look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Why I shared this quote is because it comes to the life that you're currently living and the frustration that you might potentially feel. And while you keep saying, pick up the things that you left on the floor, or I'm just not happy in my job, and just keep doing it over and over and expecting something different, well, That's insanity. And I'm here to encourage you to really step in. And I hope that I gave you something to really grab a hold on and go, this person did. I have a ton in my past that was really trying. I'm not special. I'm not special. There's nothing special about me. I'm just like you. You can do this and step into living the life of your dreams. And so this last slide is just a picture of my family in a few places. I have literally thousands of pictures like this over the last 10 years. You can create the connection with your spouse. You can create the connection with your kids, and you can see these amazing places. You can do it, and you can live the life that excites you. In the end, you want to wake up going, yes, I'm living this life. High five to your wife, high five to your kids. And you want to be full, right? You want to not get to a life at the end of your life and have those regrets like, I wish I would have seen this. I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have taken those risks. You can do it. Now, we have multiple websites. We have coaching that we can help you go back to Nomads with a Purpose. Follow us on Instagram for more inspiration. If you're ready to take a small step forward and maybe I woke you up to some limitations, BeTheHero.academy. BeTheHero.academy is where you can go to get to start to unravel and start to pull out, like, what are the things that are limiting you? Or heck, sign up for a coaching call with either Robyn or I, and we can help you take that step so that you can live your amazing life. Thanks a lot. Until next time.